Think Game of Thrones is just about dragons, duels, and drama. What if I told you the real power, the force that truly moved the pieces on the board, wasn't a sword, but a coin? A lot of people picture the medieval world as a place where everyone was just a dirt-poor farmer. But Westeros, much like our own history, has a surprisingly complex and cutthroat economy hiding just beneath the surface. There's hidden wealth, sophisticated trade, and a system of power built on more than just armies. So, before we dive in, let me ask you, what do you think really kept Westeros running financially? Let's start with the basics, the feudal pyramid. It's the backbone of Westerosi society. At the very top, you have the king on the Iron Throne. Below him are the great lords, like the Starks in the north or the Tyrells in the Reach, and at the bottom, the vast majority of the population. The small folk. Power in Westeros is land. The more land you control, the more wealth you command. It's a simple, brutal equation. The small folk work the land, which belongs to their lord. In return for protection, they pay taxes. But these aren't your modern income taxes. We're talking about a system called tithes and tribute. A farmer might have to give his lord a tenth of his harvest, a fisherman a share of his catch, a craftsman a portion of his goods. A lot of this exchange happens in kind, meaning with actual goods, not necessarily with gold coins. This produce, these goods, this labor, all flows up the chain. The local lord takes his cut, his superior lord takes a cut from him, and so on, all the way to the crown. This is how the great houses build their fortunes. Think about it. House Lannister isn't just powerful because they have a big army. They're powerful because they're literally sitting on gold mines at Casterly Rock. Their wealth is legendary. A Lannister always pays his debts isn't just a motto. It's a statement of immense financial power. Or consider House Tyrell. Their strength comes from the fertile lands of the Reach, the breadbasket of Westeros. They control the food supply, and in a world where winter can last for years, controlling food is like controlling life itself. So, while the lords provide protection, the small folk provide the resources that fuel the entire kingdom. It's a cycle of dependency where wealth and power are one and the same. But Westeros isn't an isolated island of farmers. It's a major player in a bustling global economy. To think it's purely an agrarian society is a huge myth. The Seven Kingdoms are connected to the free cities of Essos through vibrant and dangerous trade routes. Imagine the docks at King's Landing or Old Town, crowded with ships from across the narrow sea. They're offloading exotic goods that the lords and ladies of Westeros crave. We're talking about fine silks and lace from Lys, fragrant spices from Volantis, and rich tapestries from Myr. These aren't just luxuries, they are status symbols. A lord wearing a Myrish tapestry cloak is showing off his wealth and connections. And what does Westeros export? The finest wines from the Arbor and the sun-drenched fields of Dorne are prized across the known world. Timber from the north, wool from the Westerlands, and raw iron are also valuable commodities. This trade doesn't just enrich the merchants, it funnels immense wealth into the coffers of the great houses who control the ports and tax the goods passing through, and who creates the goods within Westeros itself. This is where the skilled craftsmen and their guilds come in. Blacksmiths are the most obvious example. In a world of knights and soldiers, a master armorer like Gendry or Tobo Mott is indispensable. They forge the steel that wins wars. But there are also weavers creating fine cloth, masons building the magnificent castles, and shipwrights constructing the fleets that dominate the seas. These craftsmen often form guilds to protect their trade secrets, set prices, and ensure quality. They are the middle class of Westeros, more prosperous than the average farmer, but still subject to the whims of the nobility. And let's not forget about banking. While Westeros has its own moneylenders, the real financial giant, the one that makes even kings tremble, lies across the sea, the Iron Bank of Braavos. We'll get to them in a moment because their influence changes everything. Now, Let us talk about the single most powerful financial institution in the world of ice and fire, the Iron Bank of Braavos. Their motto should be feared more than any house words. The Iron Bank will have its due. This isn't just a bank. It's a kingmaker and a kingdom breaker. When the lords of Westeros need to fund their extravagant lifestyles, or more importantly, their devastating wars, they often find their own treasuries running dry. So, they turn to the Iron Bank for a loan. But borrowing from the Iron Bank is a deal with the devil. They are famously ruthless and unsentimental. They don't care about your titles or your family name. They only care about repayment. If a king or lord defaults on their debt, the Iron Bank won't send an army. They'll do something far more effective. They'll fund your enemies. They will find a rival, a pretender to your throne, and give them the gold they need to overthrow you. Why? Because the new ruler will be indebted to the bank and will be sure to honor the kingdom's debts. We see this play out with Stannis Baratheon, and later with Cersei Lannister. They both go, cap in hand, to Braavos, seeking the funds to press their claims. The Iron Bank's decision to back one side can single-handedly tip the scales of a war. This brings us to the true cost of conflict in Westeros. We see the epic battles, the fallen heroes, and the conquered castles. But the economic devastation is just as profound. Wars are incredibly expensive. You have to pay soldiers, forge weapons, build siege engines, and feed entire armies. This drains the treasury at an alarming rate. Fields are burned, crops are destroyed, and farmers are forced to flee or are conscripted into armies. This leads to food shortages and, eventually, famine. Trade routes are disrupted, merchants are too scared to travel, and the flow of goods and money grinds to a halt. The winner of a battle might inherit a kingdom that is bankrupt and starving. And then there are the extraordinary events. A long, harsh winter can cripple the entire continent, decimating harvests and livestock. And what's the economic impact of, say, a dragon attack? An entire city, an entire army can be turned to ash in moments. The destruction of infrastructure and the loss of life is economically catastrophic. In these desperate times, leaders are forced to take desperate measures, leading them right back to the cold. Calculating embrace of the Iron Bank. So far, we've talked about the official economy, taxes, trade, and banking. But just like in the real world, there's a thriving shadow economy operating just beneath the surface, a network of unseen drivers that keep the gears turning. Think of Lord Pettier Baelish Littlefinger. His power wasn't built on land or a famous name. It was built in the shadows. He controlled a network of brothels, which were not just sources of income, but invaluable hubs of information. Secrets are a currency all their own in Westeros, and Littlefinger was the master of that market. Then there's smuggling. When taxes are high or certain goods are outlawed, a black market inevitably emerges. Think of Davos Seaworth, the Onion Knight. He made his name smuggling goods into besieged castles. Smugglers are the lifeblood of blockaded cities and the bane of tax collectors playing a risky but profitable game. And don't underestimate the importance of infrastructure. The King's Road, built by the Targaryens, is more than just a path. It's the main artery of the continent. It allows armies to move quickly, but just as importantly, it allows merchants to transport goods, messengers to carry information, and tax collectors to make their rounds. Without roads, ships, and ports, the economy of Westeros would collapse. A well-maintained road is as vital to a lord's power as a strong castle wall. All these hidden factors, the brothels, the smugglers, the very roads themselves contribute to the complex economic web of the Seven Kingdoms. So, when we rewatch Game of Thrones, understanding its economy gives us a whole new lens. The political struggles, the betrayals, and the alliances are not just driven by ambition or honor. They are fundamentally driven by resources, by debt, and by the desperate need to maintain economic stability. Tywin Lannister's pragmatism Daenerys' struggle to rule Meereen. The Night's Watch's constant need for supplies at all comes back to economics. The fight for the Iron Throne is not just a Game of Thrones. It's a game of gold, grain, and grinding poverty. A kingdom that can feed its people or pay its soldiers is a kingdom on the brink of collapse, no matter how many dragons it has. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the finances of Westeros. If you enjoyed this and want to see more content that breaks down the hidden details of your favorite worlds, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. Let me know in the comments what other fictional economies you'd like to explore next. Until then, take care.